one of my very favorite parts of the book, and then there are lots of moments I love, but I love the moment that Howard walks away and he he comes to you and basically says like, "I- I'm kind of done. It's not an ask. It's I'm leaving. I'm departing." And
Oh,
I was just thinking, and then he comes back. Like he goes away and in part like as the homeowner and the person building this, I can think of all the anxiety that goes into that. But what I'm focused on is like Howard recognizing that he's not in the best state to accomplish the task and that he needs to go away. And then he comes back with renewed focus and vigor and attack and just knocks it out. And well, at least that's my takeaway. And I was thinking like that is not something that we often have the gift of these days. Whether you're in school
yeah.
and you have 15 weeks and then you have deadlines to produce papers or read books or whatever, there's not a lot of time built in for revision or idea generation or whatever you want to call it. All those things, that make something better.
Right.
And I remember you talking about this book kind of beginning during a sabbatical when you are literally taking a break from
That's
your
right.
your regular job.
That's right.
And I don't know, there's something about that ability to recognize that you're not at your peak and then seek out that break. And I don't know, like what do you why do you in the book tell me, I guess, how you see Howard working during that break. And then in general, I'm
Oh
just kind of
boy.
wondering, like, if we recognize that it's something that's valuable, why don't we allow for it more often, do you think?
Well, sure. Yeah, it's it's so much more rare for for somebody in the trades to um, approach an employer or a client and to say, I'm kind of burnt out. I could really benefit from a month or whatever. Got some business that I have to take care of, and if you could allow me that time, I'd come back refreshed and focused, and I guarantee I'll come back. It takes a lot of trust on the part of the client or the employer, first of all, um, or it takes a lot of gullibility. I'm not sure where I sit on all of that. I know I was absolutely dumbfounded when he came up the driveway, not clearly ready to work. He wasn't dressed as he would be if he were ready to work. Um, and the fellow that he normally worked with wasn't coming up the driveway in his work van either. And I was really um, caught at a loss. First of all, I'm absolutely lousy at confrontation. I'm terrible. Um, People can put things over on me uh, because I might go a little bit too far in avoiding that confrontation. If I'm in the confrontation, that's different. But I prefer to avoid it if I could. Um, I really believe everybody ought to get um, the opportunity to refresh from their work. Unfortunately, um, for people um, who are their own bosses, that 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 opportunity doesn't exist. If you have a regular employer throughout the year, you might be able to make that work, and I would be all for it. But if you're an independent and you've taken on a job, you've signed a contract, or there's an agreement in principle, um, I mean, this is a fireable offense. I mean, I'm sorry. You want how much time off and why? Um, it, it, I've got this job that has to be finished. The back of the house is wide open to the weather. Come on. What do you mean? Well, I never said any of that stuff. I simply listened to him, and um, he was very quiet in explaining what it was that was bothering him. He didn't tell me everything. I only found out later the rest of it. Yeah, he needed to see his wife. He hadn't seen her for close to a year. And although I make several jokes about why he might have wanted to see her after having not seen her for a year, um, I believed him, um, and and I also believed him when he said, "Look, um, Jerry's going to carry on. We need to put an asterisk after that one. Jerry's going to carry on. I've employed two other people who are they're not going to be making the same amount of money as I would if I were working it, but they're going to be there to be helpers. And of course you're going to be there and you're getting better all the time. Um, when am I coming back? I'm not sure. I think it'll be about a month. Well, it's almost a month to the day. Um, and I said, okay, well, I hope you'll come back because I love your work. Your work is great. Um, and I've really enjoyed working with you. Um, he said, I'll be back. I promise you. What I didn't know was um, that Howard um, harbored this this suspicion that Jerry was undercutting him, that there was sabotage afoot. Um, I can't verify that. Um, when Howard called me from the cabin, um, 250 miles away, and told me that he had kicked Jerry off the property, and that it had a real blow up, and that it had to boil down to sabotage. I was shocked because I didn't get any of that vibe to begin with, but clearly there'd been some professional disagreements. There'd been some friction. Um, I could feel that from the very first meeting on the site where Jerry showed up in his Ray-Bans and, his shorts and his boat shoes and it was clear that he disdained the job. He didn't care that much for being there. Um, Very different from Howard's approach. And then as the job went on, Jerry got embarrassed by how little he was prepared for some of the challenges that job presented. Um, we had a hell of a job on on the joists after we'd torn the roof off, trying to get all of the blocking in and all of the ends cut off so that we could actually build that second floor. And he kept getting it wrong. And I say this at the time as a neophyte, but I could tell he was having trouble because of the directions that he was giving me. Here, take the sawzall and cut these ends off. Well, no, cut them like that, cut them like that. So there were professional disagreements, and there was jealousy that was going on in there that complicated the whole reason for what Howard was asking the extra time for. Putting that all aside, though, um, I know when I walked in the house and I said, "Where's Howard?" I said, "Howard won't be back for a while." I can only imagine what my face looked like to Linda. You know, what the hell just happened here? But I really believed him. I believed him. I trusted him. Something was wrong. He had to fix it. He had to go 1,500 miles in order to fix that. And once it was fixed, he'd be back. And he was. And I'm so glad that I trusted him to do that. But it was most unusual. And under the circumstances, the sabbatical issue, so important to me in my professional life, was a very different kind of an animal in these circumstances. He got a sabbatical. Um, he got a sabbatical from me. Um, but it was totally different from any other sabbatical that I'd ever encountered. Yeah.
Well, I think because, I mean, part of me wonders if you weren't more beyond, aside from not liking confrontation, if you weren't maybe more accepting of the idea of a break because sabbaticals are built into your job.
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of
Yeah.
a unique thing. I think most people would be like, what the hell? What do you mean? Like, nobody can do that. You can't just take a month off. Now, sabbaticals aren't really designed that way either. They're supposed to refresh and research and, produce
Absolutely.
something.
A lot
So
of
like,
work happens in
so
sabbatical.
your sabbatical would be
Yeah.
very different than the sabbatical that Howard took. Not that he wasn't doing work, just different kinds of work.
No, and teachers like me, we we get no end of crap from people um, about the fact that we get our summers off. Kind of a little sabbatical there. We get paid while we have that summer off. Sometimes we're teaching. Sometimes we teach 2/3 of the summer, like I did that particular summer, and leaving, just maybe a month, 3 weeks to get ready to go back to school again. But um, yeah, people continue to rag on folks like us who get the summers off. We don't get the summer off. What are you talking about? That's maybe the United Auto Workers are bargaining for something very much like that right now. They want more time off. So.